Revealed, the incredible moment a paralyzed CO discovered love with a mechanic, a touching transformation. Jake's world had collapsed in an instant, just like the crumpled metal of his car on that fateful night. A former CEO, the pride of his suburban community, now sat paralyzed, physically trapped in a world that spun on without him. Days blurred into weeks, each one weighted with loneliness, the echo of his wife's departure still stinging. She left not only for her own ambition, but for the man he once was, the man whose dreams filled their home with laughter and promise. "You aren't him anymore," she had whispered, daggers laced in soft words that I in his quiet home. The walls seemed to close in, wrapping him tighter in desolation. Friday night football games echoed outside, a cacophony of joy and camaraderie that amplified the void in his heart. He longed for connection, for laughter, for purpose. Then one day, as he wheeled himself around town searching for solace, he stumbled upon a small mechanic shop, its sign flickering desperately in the fading light. Inside, amid the smell of oil and the hum of machines, he met Sarah, a resilient single mother whose hands were calloused yet soothing. Her warmth had seemed alien, inviting him to step into her world, a world crafted from grit and determined joy. Their conversations were filled with laughter and stories, as she shared tales of her son, her struggles, and her dreams. Jake admired her tenacity, something that began to mend the insides he thought were shattered for good. He found himself drawn to her spirit, a flicker of hope igniting deep within him. But just when Jake seemed to let himself feel, a crisis hit like a tidal wave. The town was abuzz with whispers that Sarah's South shop might close. Outdated prejudices loomed heavily. People thought of her trade as lesser. Jake felt the old surge of ambition rise in him, a fierce determination. He had spent years in boardrooms making things happen. So why not here? He wanted to save the place that offered him newfound joy, that fought fiercely against convention. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the town gathered for a meeting, tension danced in the air. Jake wheeled himself to the front, heart pounding. It was an unfamiliar battleground, the very community that had once celebrated him now wary of his frailty. But he found his voice, calling on his past experience, standing tall as whispers of doubt washed over him like drowning waves. His words were laced with a fight he hadn't known he still possessed. The lingering stares felt heavy, but he pushed through, defending not just Sarah but the future he sought. As the crowd gradually began to rally, Jake caught sight of Sarah's eyes, bright and filled with gratitude. Despite the noise, everything felt electric. Just as hope sparked a flame, his phone buzzed. It was a message from his wife, a thin sliver of possibility. "Can we talk? I miss you." The weight of those words hung in the air, stifling. Jake looked up, faced with the new beginnings blooming around him, while the ghost of his past beckoned quietly from the shadows. What path would he choose? Jake's heart raced as he stared at the screen, the message from his wife lingering like smoke in a room. "Can we talk? I miss you." Each word felt like a hand clenching around his chest, squeezing tighter with every second. Part of him longed to reply, to reach out to the life he had lost, but another part, one that was awakening like the spring blooms around him, urged him to focus on now. He took a steadying breath, the sounds of the crowd rising around him like a soothing balm. Discussions were underway, people rallying to defend Sarah's shop. The spark in Jake continued to flicker. He understood that hope wasn't just about retaining the past, but about forging a new path. Nurses had tended to him with a resilience he admired, just as he admired Sarah's tenacity. But now, he needed to balance the past with the potential of what could be. "Jake!" A voice broke through his thoughts. It was Sarah, weaving her way through the crowd towards him. "You were amazing." Her face glowed, eyes sparkling. He felt the warmth of her presence wrap around him like a comforting hug. "Thanks," he replied, a shy smile creeping across his lips. "I just spoke what was in my heart." "Your heart is powerful," she said, her sincere gaze locking onto his. In that moment, the noise of the crowd faded, and it felt just like the two of them, a whisper of hope in a sea of uncertainty. But the moment shattered when his phone buzzed again. Jake, his wife's voice echoed in his mind. The past pressed hard against him, but that tether to old closeness flickered against the vibrant warmth radiating from Sarah. Confusion swirled, a storm of emotion threatening to drown him. "I need a minute," he finally said, realizing he had to make a decision. Sarah's expression shifted, a flicker of worry crossing her features, but she nodded in understanding. "Of course. Take all the time you need." He rolled away, finding a quiet corner of the hall. The chatter of townsfolk rose and fell like waves crashing onto a shore. He glanced once more at the message, thoughts racing. Was this the right moment to reach out? To reopen a door he thought he'd closed? The rush of mingled feelings was overwhelming. He had fought for Sarah, for her shop, for a chance to rebuild something deep within. But could he leave behind what he once had? Jake opened the message again. His fingers hovered over the screen, warring with his heart. "I miss you." Did she miss the version of him he had been, or the man he was becoming? As if sensing his turmoil, Sarah appeared beside him. "You okay?" she asked softly, her voice a gentle tether to the present. He looked up, her presence reminding him of the strength he had found. "I don't know what to do," he admitted, vulnerability spilling out. "I'm torn." In that moment, Sarah reached out, her touch grounding. "You can choose. There's no wrong answer. Just be honest with yourself." Her words lingered, vibrating with a truth that cut deep. He felt the call of his past, but the possibility of a future with Sarah shimmered just beyond his reach. Perhaps this decision wasn't about forgetting. It was about embracing change. Jake closed his eyes, envisioning what could lie ahead. But as he prepared to respond, the meeting shifted. Shouts erupted in the hall as opponents to Sarah's shop began to drown out support. The battle was just beginning, and chaos could shift everything he had started to build. With the noise around him rising to an unbearable crescendo, he faced a truth he couldn't ignore. Which future would he fight for? He opened his eyes, ready to act. Would he dive into the fray, standing solidly for his conviction and Sarah, or would he seek the comfort of past shadows? In this moment of decision, the stakes were brutally high, and the choice felt life-defining. Jake launched himself back into the fray, holding in his heart both past and hope for the future. Just as he moved, his phone buzzed again, the image of his wife lighting up the screen once more. As the words began to form, he realized he was at a precipice, bound by his past, yet resolute to forge ahead. But would he stick to his promise to Sarah, or would he answer the call of a life he once knew? The answers danced on the edge of his heart as a new chapter began to unfold. Jake stepped back into the chaos. The clamor of voices tumbled all around him. The atmosphere was electric, thick with tension and passion. He spotted Sarah at the front of the assembly, her hands raised in an attempt to call for order. His heart surged at the sight of her, fierce and unyielding. The sight of her ignited something within him, a flame he thought had been extinguished. "Listen, everyone." Sarah's voice cut through the din, unwavering. "We're fighting not just for a shop, but for our community. For each other." The crowd began to settle, some nodding in agreement, while others remained scowling. Jake felt the grip of fear in his gut. What if the crowd turned against her? What if they turned against him? He couldn't bear the thought of letting her down, not now when she needed him the most. He thrust his phone deep into his pocket, silencing the pull of his past. With each step he took, determination spiraled within him. He pushed through the crowd, reaching Sarah's side as she was surrounded by naysayers. He could see the glimmer of doubt in her eyes, and he knew he had to strengthen her resolve. "Sarah," he called out, and her gaze snapped to him, surprise mixing with relief. "Jake," she started, but he placed a hand on her shoulder, signaling her to let him speak. "Listen up, everyone," he announced, his voice rising above the murmurs. "I stand with Sarah. I believe in this shop and what it means to our community. This is a place where dreams grow, not just for Sarah, but for all of us." The crowd quieted, their gaze shifting from Sarah to him. He felt the weight of their attention. "I know what it's like to feel lost. I was in a dark place, and I thought I wouldn't find my way back. But this shop, this spirit, it's what got me through. It's more than just a store, it's a home for hope." A ripple of recognition swept through the crowd. A few murmurs of agreement broke out, and for a brief moment, hope flickered in the air like a warm breeze. "Jake, you went through so much," someone shouted from the back. "And yet you're standing here. We need courage like that." A unified roar of encouragement surged through the room as people rallied behind him. Jake glanced at Sarah, whose eyes were wide in disbelief. He smiled, a wave of confidence washing over him. This was it. This was their moment. But just as he thought they were gaining momentum, another voice cut in, sharp and derisive. "You're just a man caught up in a fantasy. You think this is going to save you? You're fooling yourself." A figure emerged from the opposing side of the hall, a smirk tugging at the corners of his lips. Jake's heartbeat pounded loudly in his chest, his previous confidence beginning to wane. "No," he insisted, standing firm. "It's not just about saving myself. It's about pulling all of us together. We can thrive if we believe in one another." The crowd wavered, the tension palpable. He could see tempers rising, ready to erupt. Would this rift tear apart what they had built in this moment of unity? Just then, Sarah stepped forward, unwavering. "We're more than individuals. We're a family standing for each other. I know what my shop means to all of you," she declared fiercely. "But I need you to fight with me. I remember when the whole town supported each other." An elderly woman chimed in, her voice shaky but strong. "We rebuilt after the storm, didn't we?" The tide began to shift, with fresh shouts of agreement echoing back. Jake looked at Sarah, their eyes locking in a shared determination. But just as they began to rally, Jake's phone buzzed once more, this time feeling like a thunderclap within his pocket. The battle of the past and present was raging on multiple fronts, and he felt the choice weighing heavily upon him. Could he truly abandon everything he once knew? Or was this an opportunity for something new to blossom? As the debate swirled, sparks of courage ignited in the hall. Jake tightened his grip on Sarah's hand, the connection electrifying him. Could they weather this storm together? With his heart pounding, Jake prepared to step up once more, caught between two worlds. But would their shared hope be enough to conquer the fears that loomed overhead? As the air crackled with intensity, Jake's eyes fell to his phone. The choice awaited him, yet so did the chance for a brighter tomorrow. What would he decide, and what awaited them in the strife ahead? The energy in the room crackled as Jake fought to center himself. His heart raced, adrenaline coursing through him. He turned back to the crowd, gathering every ounce of strength he could muster. He had to believe they could make this work. "Together, we can push through this," he shouted, his voice now full of conviction. "What we have here is more than just a shop. It's a reflection of what we can achieve as a community." The murmurs swelled again. People leaned in, some brows furrowed, others hopeful. Jake glanced at Sarah, whose expression had shifted from uncertainty to fierce determination, her eyes shining in the dim light. "Do you remember the last fair we held?" Jake continued, drawing on memories of laughter and warmth. "The way we all came together. We created something beautiful then, and we can do it again, starting right here, right now." "Yeah," a voice piped up from the back. "We've made memories together. Let us do this for those memories." A ripple of agreement spread, creating a wave of energy that rolled across the assembly. The detractor from earlier, still hovering on the fringe, sneered, but the tide was turning. Jake felt as if his vision was sharpening, clarity cutting through the chaos in his mind. He turned to Sarah and saw her inspired, matching his growing resolve. "Sarah," he said, his voice lowered but fervent, "don't underestimate how much this matters to them. You've built a family here." She nodded, her chin held high. "And I'm not letting it go without a fight," she said, her voice powerful and unwavering. Another voice rose from the back, older, but filled with fierce pride. "That shop helped me when I was down. It's where I found a community when I lost everything." The crowd erupted into cheers, and with it came a warm rush of unity. Jake could see it now, the love, the bonds formed through trials. But just as hope swelled, Jake felt the weight of his phone again, a reminder of the demands of his past. Each buzz was a tether pulling at him, but he couldn't afford to be distracted. Not now. He had to shield Sarah from fear, from doubt. She had fought so hard. "Can you see what we've built?" He pressed. "Take a look around. This is our community, the friend who's always there, the neighbor who lends a hand. We're all together in this." Thoughts raced through Jake's mind. If he let go of his past completely, could he truly flourish? Could they flourish? No one is perfect, Jake declared, feeling the warmth of the crowd urging him on. Each of us has a story, scars we've carried. But together, we transform those scars into strength. Sarah's eyes sparkled with tears. And we refuse to let anyone tear that down. It's our time to stand together. The energy exploded in the hall. Cheers and claps now filled the air, drowning out the negativity. Jake glanced at the man who had attempted to divide them. Uncertainty flickered across his face now as he stepped back. Jake let out a deep breath, feeling lighter. They were on the cusp of something great. Maybe, just maybe, they could win this battle together. But then, from the midst of the crowd, a single figure raised their voice. What if it's too late? The harm is already done. Can you really fix this? Jake's heart sank, the weight of doubt crashing down again. They had made progress, but was it fragile? Would it all crumble away at the first sign of trouble? He searched for Sarah's gaze, finding assurance in her expression. Yet the question lingered, casting shadows over the hope blossoming. What would be their next move, and could the past be truly overcome? Jake felt the tension in the air once more, and a shiver of anticipation trickled down his spine. They were at a crossroads, one that could make or break everything. Would he trust in the future they dreamed of, or would the fear of failure chain him to his past? Jake's grip tightened on the microphone as the room fell silent, the noise of hope replaced by a weighty pause. The person who questioned him had struck a nerve, and uncertainty hung heavily like a thick fog. He took a deep breath, rummaging through his thoughts for a response that could pierce through the doubt. What if it's too late? Jake repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. The crowd remained still, the truth of the words resonating painfully. But what if it's not? He countered, gaining traction. What if we choose to fight for what we love? What if we refuse to be defined by our mistakes? The former detractor who had thrown the doubt into the air shifted uncomfortably. Jake could see the flicker of battle in the crowd's eyes. They were searching for leadership, for someone to guide them through the murky waters of fear. Listen, Jake continued. We're not just standing here as individuals, we're a team. Every single one of you brings something unique. We've built memories. We've shared struggles. That's our strength. A ripple of murmurs began again, and Jake's heart soared at the sound. The collective spirit was alive, pulsing through their shared experiences. We can't change the past, he said, letting the weight of that truth settle briefly. But we can forge a new path today. We can create something that future generations will sustain and cherish. Sarah stepped forward, eyes fierce. It's time we embrace what we have. We've survived storms together. We're family, and families support one another. A woman in the front, a young mother with a baby cradled in her arms, nodded fervently. We can't give up. Not now. We owe it to ourselves to fight for our home. Jake saw her passion ripple through the crowd, igniting a fire within each person present. Shouts of encouragement rang out, voices soaring into what felt like an insurmountable wall of support. Jake glanced at Sarah, who was now grinning through tears of pride. Her belief fueled him, and he knew then they had to channel this energy toward a purpose. Let us take action, he shouted, raising his arms high. This is only the beginning. Let us make a plan. A community meeting, workshops, and events. Let us invite everyone, rekindle their spirit. Cheers erupted once more, and Jake felt the thrill of hope swell within him. Yet, just as he'd begun to bask in the shared enthusiasm, a shadow flicked through his mind, the nagging weight of his past, and the messages competing for his attention. The buzzing in his pocket intensified, but he pushed it away. This moment wasn't about him. It was about them. Uncertainty hung like a storm cloud just outside the door, but at that moment, Jake knew they could combat it with determination. Tomorrow, we meet again, Jake called over the deafening applause. Bring your ideas. Bring your friends. We're going to turn this ship around together. As the crowd began to disperse, there remained an energy and electric anticipation of the fight ahead. Jake felt like he'd ignited something that would not easily be extinguished, but seated in a corner, the figure who had cast doubt remained. Jake's gut twisted. He could sense that the real challenge was still lurking. Are we truly ready for whatever comes next? He wondered internally. The atmosphere buzzed with enthusiasm, but were they prepared to face the shadows of their past as they moved toward a brighter future? Their next steps would define not only them, but the heart of their community. And with that thought, He tucked his phone back into his pocket, ready to see what tomorrow would bring. As he turned to find Sarah, their eyes locked, filled with aspirations and fears mingling on the cusp of hope. What obstacles awaited them when the dust of hope settled, and would they be strong enough to withstand the challenges on the horizon? The sun broke through the clouds the next morning, casting warm golden rays over the streets. Jake arrived early, a sense of anticipation buzzing in his veins. He stood at the center of the park, where they had agreed to hold the community meeting. Colorful banners flapped in the gentle breeze, symbols of hope, but they also reminded Jake of the daunting task ahead. He set up chairs, glancing around at the neighborhood homes weathered but proud, children playing by the fountain, the sound of laughter weaving through the air. He envisioned each person who would show up, their faces glowing with determination. As people began to trickle in, Jake felt the pulsing rhythm of unity. Sarah was the first to arrive, her eyes sparkling. "I brought cookies," she announced cheerfully, holding up a plate as if it were a trophy. Jake chuckled, grateful for the warmth of her presence. "You always know how to lift the mood." They arranged the chairs into a semicircle. It felt welcoming, intimate, as if they were pulling their community closer. The small gatherings quickly blossomed into a larger crowd. Neighbors exchanged news and smiles, sharing pieces of their lives like the pieces of a puzzle they had been trying to solve together. Just as he was about to take the stage, the figure from yesterday slipped into sight, a shadow lingering at the edge. It was Mark, the one who had sown doubt the day before. Jake took a deep breath, finding courage in the sea of familiar faces. "Okay, everyone," Jake called, his voice rising above the chatter. "Thank you for coming together today. What we're building is bigger than just us. We have a chance to merge our strengths and grow as a community." Nods and murmurs of agreement rolled through the crowd like a gentle wave. He began sharing his vision for workshops, community events, and outreach programs, passionate ideas flowing like a rushing river. Sarah caught his eye, her supportive grin encouraging him to push forward. Then, amid the enthusiasm, Jake's gaze fell on Mark. The man folded his arms, a skeptical look plastered on his face. It nagged at him. Why was Mark here? With a racing heart, Jake decided to address it. "I know some of you may have doubts, but let us talk about them. Let us not sweep anything under the rug. We can face our fears head-on." A murmur of surprise swept through the crowd. Mark shifted, surprised that he was being drawn into this moment. "Mark," Jake said, his voice steady, "what is on your mind?" The crowd went silent, eyes darting between the two men. Mark hesitated, the air thick with anticipation. "You think this can actually change anything? We've been through so much. What is stopping us from failing again?" The words hung like heavy weights, causing a ripple of tension. Jake felt a lump in his throat, but he couldn't back down. The past doesn't dictate our future. Together, we can learn from it. Every failure is a step toward growth. We can't let fear hold us back. Mark uncrossed his arms. Jake saw something shift in his expression, doubt giving way to contemplation. "And if we try and it doesn't work?" Jake stepped closer, locking eyes with him. "Then we try again. The point is we don't stand alone. We have each other. This isn't just some fleeting idea, it's our home. It's worth fighting for." The stillness shattered as people began to speak up, voices emerging from the crowd, sharing their own fears and suggestions, turning doubt into fuel for action. But just beyond the community gathering, a rider on a motorcycle revved the engine, a jarring interruption. Jake turned, a chill racing down his spine. Who was it? What were they intending? As the crowd absorbed the noise, exchanging curious glances, the rusted vehicle rolled to a stop, engine still purring. The rider removed their helmet, revealing a face etched with urgency and concern. "Jake," the rider called out, urgency soaking every syllable. "You need to hear this." Jake's heart raced. What news could this stranger bring? And how would it shift the course of this fragile moment they'd begun to forge? Curiosity and dread mingled as the crowd gathered tighter around him, eyes flickering with a new layer of uncertainty. Would this news be the strength they needed or the spark that lit a new fire of chaos? The crowd parted just enough for Jake to see the rider, a woman dressed in leather, her determination apparent in her stance. She approached him, breathless but composed, drawing the attention of the gathering like a magnet. "Jake, listen. There is something happening in the old factory down the road. It's important. You need to know." Her voice was firm, yet laced with an urgency that sent a ripple of anxiety through him. "What is going on?" Jake asked, stepping closer, his heart pounding louder than the motorcycle engine had minutes earlier. "There's a group trying to take over. They're planning to turn the factory into some sort of engine for profit, making things worse for everyone here." I overheard them. The woman's eyes darted around, as if expecting someone to jump out from behind a tree. "I thought you should know they're making moves tonight." The weight of her words settled upon Jake like an unwelcome storm cloud. He had spent the morning clinging to optimism, but fear crept in now, twisting his stomach. The community they were trying to build could be at risk all over again. Mark, who had been listening intently, stepped forward, his earlier skepticism momentarily forgotten. "What do we do about it?" he asked, his voice steady and filled with conviction. "I don't know yet," Jake admitted, feeling the intensity of the moment raising the stakes for this gathering. "But we can't let them go unchecked. If they're planning something tonight, we need to act fast." The crowd buzzed with anxiety and determination, ideas flickering like candles in a dark room. Sarah turned to Jake, her expression a mix of fear and fierce resolve. "We have to tell the community. Everyone deserves to know." "Yes," someone shouted from the back. "Let us mobilize." All eyes turned to Jake, their hopes now resting on him once more. He felt the weight of their expectations pressing against him, a familiar yet daunting pressure. "Okay, here's what we'll do," Jake said, his heart racing as he let adrenaline guide him. "We need to spread the word. Talk to your neighbors. Tell them what is happening. We'll meet here again before sunset to organize and confront whoever's trying to take over." The crowd roared with approval, a sense of unity sparking anew. Yet, beneath that excitement, Jake felt a gnawing uncertainty. What if their effort didn't matter? What if the power they were fighting against was too strong? As people began to disperse, energized by their purpose, Jake turned to the woman on the motorcycle. "What is your name?" he asked, reaching out to her. "Lena," she replied, her eyes softening a bit. "I grew up here. I can't just stand by and watch them bulldoze the community I care about." "Thank you, Lena. Your courage means a lot," Jake said, feeling a solid bond begin to form between them. Jake watched as Mark stepped away, engaged now in conversation with a few others. People started to take action, urgent, passionate. Yet within him, another part wrestled with the weight of chaos awaiting them. Would they truly be ready for the fight ahead? The sun hung low in the sky, signaling the atmosphere was shifting. Jake felt the tension coiling tighter. As people scattered home to rally support, he lingered a moment longer, gazing at the horizon. The faint sound of revving engines echoed through the park, a reminder that danger lurked close, unseen but palpable. "Tonight is everything," he whispered, still caught in his own thoughts. "We have one chance to protect what we love." He turned to Lena, determination igniting in him. "Let us do this." But even as he said it, doubt crept in again. Would it be enough? The stark reality loomed large, and Jake felt the ground shifting beneath him as they began to walk. The weight of his uncertainty was heavy. What awaited them as the sun set? Would they rise to the challenge or stumble into the dark? Behind them, the laughter of children now felt like a distant echo, swallowed by the weight of looming darkness. The battle for their community had only just begun. Jake felt the weight of the world push down on his shoulders as he and Lena moved toward the community center. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows that stretched across the pavement, echoing the uncertainty settling deep in his chest. The air buzzed with an energy he couldn't quite grasp. It was both thrilling and terrifying that as they walked. Lena kept casting glances at him, her brow furrowed in thought. "You really believe we can stop them?" she asked suddenly, her tone serious and hopeful at the same time that he wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise her and everyone else that they would win this fight. But the truth felt raw and jagged in his throat. "I want to believe it," he replied slowly. "But these people won't back down easily. They see profit, not people." Lena nodded, her lips pressing together in a tense line. "We're fighting for something real, Jake. We have to believe that matters more than their greed." He admired her passion. It burned brightly in her eyes, a stark contrast to the dimming daylight. But fear gnawed at him. It was the same fear he felt when he faced the uncertainty of his own future, before he realized he had to fight for what he loved, too. Arriving at the community center, they found several people already gathered, their voices a mix of excitement and anxiety. Mark jumped up from a huddle of locals, his hands animated as he spoke. "We need to strategize," he said, eyes determined. "We can't go in blind." Jake took a deep breath, swallowing hard against the knot in his stomach. "Okay, listen up," he called out, gathering everyone's attention. The murmurs quieted, and he felt the intensity rise. Lena overheard something important. "A group is trying to take over the factory, and we need to act fast to stop them." Gasps and exclamations filled the air, but it was Mark who held firm. "What do we have? Are we prepared?" he pressed, looking around the room. At first, chatter erupted again as people responded with worries about lack of resources, support, and strategy. Jake felt overwhelmed. But then, he caught Lena's unwavering gaze. It ignited a spark within him. "Resource or not, we're not powerless," he announced with newfound confidence. "Every person in this room has a reason to fight. That's our strength. We know each other. We're connected. That means we can't be broken." A drumbeat of agreement followed his words. They talked late into the evening, discussing everything from creating barricades to rallying support from neighboring communities and spreading word across social media. With each suggestion, Jake felt more clarity coming forth. There was solidarity in their resolve, a determination stronger than any threat facing them. But as ideas flew around the room, unease wormed back into his mind. Jake could picture the factory, dark and looming, filled with people who had their own plans for it. He imagined the chaos that awaited them, and his stomach twisted at the thought as the last bits of daylight faded. Jake stepped outside for a moment of breath. The stars emerged in the indigo sky, twinkling above like scattered hopes. He sensed Lena beside him. Her presence was calming. "I try to imagine a future here," he confessed, "but I can't help thinking of worst-case scenarios." She turned, her expression softening. "We can get through this. What is stronger, your fear or your love for this place?" His heart swelled with feeling love, hope, a driving force. He thought of all the lives intertwined in this community, all the dreams hanging in the balance. "You're right," he said quietly, a resolution settling over him. "We can't back down now." Their gazes lingered, an understanding passing between them. At that moment, he realized they'd become more than allies. They were fighting for a common home. But just then, a distant roar of engines unnerved the stillness. The sound grew closer, overwhelming the serenity of the night. "What is that?" Lena asked, her voice laced with dread. Before Jake could respond, the shadows from the road began to merge, revealing headlights piercing the dark. He felt his heart race, a thrill of fear surging through him. They were coming. "Stay close," he shouted, leading Lena back toward the community center. What awaited them as they prepared for the impending confrontation? Would they stand strong together, or would fear consume the night? Jake's grip on Lena's hand tightened as they darted back inside the community center. The hum of the engines reverberated in his chest, a physical reminder of the storm closing in around them. He could see the flicker of fear mirrored in the faces of those inside. "Everyone, gather around," he called out, trying to drown out the noise rising from outside. The crowd began to coalesce, a mass of worried faces staring back at him. "We need to be prepared. We can't let them take what's ours." Mark took charge, shouting over the collective anxiety. "We need our strongest here to defend the doors. The rest will spread out. Be ready to meet them if they break through." Jake nodded, his heart racing. They all knew what was at stake. This was their home, their future. Lena moved to help Mark rally the others, her voice strong and unwavering. "Let us set up barriers. We'll use whatever we can find," she urged, and people sprang into action, gathering chairs and tables to barricade potential entry points. His mind raced with thoughts, strategies, fears, hope. He caught a glimpse of Lena, fervent and focused amid the chaos. Seeing her set fire to their collective determination ignited something deep within him. "Jake," Lena shouted, pulling him from his reverie. "Can you help me with this?" They hoisted a heavy table against the door, blocking the only exit. "It doesn't look like they're here to discuss business," she added, casting worried looks through the grimy window. "I think they want to intimidate us." Her words cut through him like ice. The raw, visceral reminder of what they were up against cracked through the camaraderie they had built. "But we won't let them," he countered, determination flooding his voice. As the engines turned off, silence filled the air. It hung there thick and heavy, as if the world paused to take a breath. A slam punctuated this stillness, sending the crowd flinching back. "Stay sharp," Mark yelled, his eyes darting from the windows to the group, reading their fear. "We don't know what they want, but we won't let them tear us apart." Jake's heart pounded in his chest, matching the rising tension. He could feel the pulse of adrenaline emanating from everyone around him. The idea of abandoning this place felt like a betrayal not just to the community, but to the bond he felt growing within himself and with Lena. Suddenly, they heard footsteps, heavy and deliberate. From behind the door, muffled voices began breaking the silence, low and menacing. Jake's breath hitched. "Let us show them what we're made of." That voice wasn't Mark's. It belonged to Lena, steady and firm. "If they think we'll just fold under pressure, they have no idea who they're dealing with." A knot of pride twisted in Jake's chest. Lena wasn't just a voice of support. She embodied strength. They were not just fighting a corporate takeover. They were battling for their identity, their purpose, their lives intertwined in this community. The thud reverberated against the door, shaking the barricade. The noise jolted them all, paralyzing fear rattling through the room. "They're trying to break in," whispered a woman in the corner, her voice shaking. Lena stepped forward, heart racing but face resolute. "We stand together. Remember why we're here." Their resolve began to coalesce. Heads nodded, hands gripped tighter around makeshift weapons or anything that could fend off the intruders. Jake caught Lena's gaze, and they exchanged an understanding tension mingled with hope, bolstered by fierce determination. But as the menacing sounds intensified, a new realization gripped him. What if they weren't just going to scare them off? What if this turned violent? "Jake, we need to stick together. Do you think we can hold them off?" Lena's voice was steady, but there was an underlying tremor that belied her confidence. He swallowed hard, adrenaline coursing through him. "Together, we can do anything." But just as he finished, the door began to splinter. Jake's heart lurched. How much longer could they last? Would their unity be enough to thwart the storm that was about to break upon them? As they braced for impact, the final sound shattered the air, a deafening crash, and in that moment, everything changed. Would their resolve withstand the onslaught, or would fear tear them apart? The door burst open with a thunderous crash, sending shards of wood splintering into the room. Dark shadows loomed in the entryway, figures spilling into the community's center like a dark tide. Jake's breath caught, his heart pounding against his ribs. "Remember why we're here," he shouted, his voice rising above the chaos. It was a battle cry, a reminder of their purpose that wrapped around them like armor. The community surged together, pushing against the wall of uncertainty. "Stand firm," Mark yelled, eyes ablaze with courage. The energy in the room shifted, a collective resolve igniting their spirits. The menacing figures halting on the threshold were met by a line of brave faces, neighbors standing shoulder to shoulder, united against the incoming storm. Lena grabbed Jake's arm. "We can do this." Her eyes glimmered with fierce determination. "Together," Jake shouted, as adrenaline surged through him. He realized then that this fight was more than about the factory. It was about reclaiming their lives, their spirit, their community. The intruders stepped forward, cocky smiles plastered on their faces. "What's this? A little town meeting?" One laughed, a sneer curling his lip. But the laughter quickly faded as people from the back stepped forward. "This place belongs to us. You don't intimidate us." It was that young mother from earlier, her voice filled with a raw power that rippled through the crowd. The intruders hesitated, caught off guard by the unexpected defiance. With one fierce push, the townsfolk moved forward, emboldened by the strength they drew from one another. Jake caught sight of Lena's fierce expression and felt a rush of courage. He stepped into the forefront, raising his voice high. "You think we'll just back down? No, you don't know who we are. We stand for something real, and you won't take that from us." As the crowd echoed his words, the noise reverberated through the hall. It was a unified roar, a powerful declaration that began to crack the mask of arrogance worn by the intruders. But then, the biggest man among them stepped forward. "You think you have the strength to stop us?" he challenged, bringing forth an air of wild intimidation. The moment felt fragile, but Jake sensed something welling up within him: confidence. "We've faced storms before," he declared. "We've come back from worse than you can imagine. You're right, we're not perfect. But we have something you will never take away: hope. In that moment, everyone around him seemed to draw strength from his words, and he felt it swell in the air. The intruders exchanged glances, uncertainty playing across their faces. For the first time, the tide was subtly shifting. Let's make this easy, shall we? The biggest man scoffed, but his voice lacked conviction. Just walk away, let us take what we want. The crowd erupted with shouts resounding, unwavering. Never, they shouted back, their voices weaving together into a tapestry of defiance. As the chaos rose and fell, Jake spotted a woman behind the dreaded intruder, her hand reaching for a weapon. In one swift motion, he yelled, "No!" Lena leaped forward. "We will not resort to violence. This is our home, our sanctuary. We'll fight with our voices, not with our fists." The unexpected call for peace caused the oncoming intruders to falter once again. Discord rippled through their ranks. Suddenly, a shout came from the back. "Remember, we're family here." Jake felt the walls shake with every eye that landed on them: neighbors, friends, fellow dreamers. Even the naysayers found their voice within the swell. The biggest intruder stepped back, confusion clouding his face. Jake seized the moment. "Together, we grow. We rise. We won't let outsiders decide our fate." And in that flood of words, an incredible thing began to happen. The crowd surged forward, together, forming a wall of hearts and spirits. The intruders, confronted with unity, faltered. The sneering confidence melted away, replaced by disbelief. "Get out!" A voice rang out from one of the rear doors, echoing with authority. "This is our home, and you're no welcome here." Jake felt invigorated, a collective warmth spreading through him, a sense that they could truly win this. With each word, they stitched their hopes closer together, binding the collective spirit that had always been there. And just like that, the intruders turned heel, confusion morphing into retreat. They stumbled backward, hearts pounding with fear as they faced the resolute crowd behind Jake. What had once felt like a battleground now transformed into a sanctuary, bursting with the energy of what they could achieve. Silence blanketed the room as the figures faded back into the shadows, leaving behind whispers of doubt and fear. The community erupted into cheers, voices buoyed by victory. Jake looked over at Lena, her wide smile reflected back at him. He felt a rush of elation, proof that they had pressed forward together, stood tall, and refused to back down. He felt tears prick at the corners of his eyes, joy spilling forth. How far they had come, how much strength they had discovered within each other. They were rooted in something deeper, a bond that transformed everything. Lena wrapped him in a tight embrace. "We did it," she whispered, her voice trembling with happiness. "Yes," he breathed, savoring the warmth of connection. The crowd roared around them, laughter mingling with tears of relief. In that moment, time stood still, a beautiful victory resonating in the air. And as the weight of the night lifted, Jake finally felt home. Not just in a place, but within himself and alongside others ready to fight for what mattered. They had each other. They had hope. Together, they could face anything. So as they laughed and cried and celebrated, they marked not just a victory against the invaders, but a promise to stand united and continue to build the community they loved. Your moment has come. This is the time to step, not just with your heart, but with your voice. You need to subscribe now to catch more heartwarming, life-changing stories just like this one. Hit that like button now to keep the momentum rolling and help us reach more dreamers. Leave a comment below, pouring out your feelings about this incredible journey we just witnessed. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to feel this kind of transformation. Your support can light the way for so many. Let us make hope happen.